Hello, and today I'm here today, and I'm gonna get my thoughts in order in a minute. I'm that excited about this. I'm just kind of ploughing in without really thinking about what I want to say. But today, actually this month, as part of my work that I've been doing with my clients, my leadership stuff that I've been doing with my clients, we've been focusing on self-care for Christmas. For women, particularly this time of year, it's incredibly stressful. We hold the emotional load of getting everything sorted at home and in the office. And of course, we've got the challenge of the fact that we're not actually in the office. Most of us are still at home working from home. Lockdown this year has been, a little bit hokey cokey, a little bit in, a little bit out, a little bit half in, a little bit out. Most of us are kind of in tears at the moment, and not literal tears, but tears as in kind of like the lockdown rules. So it's making Christmas really stressful. So that's why it's great at the moment for me and for my clients, the groups that I'm working with. I'm looking at self-care for Christmas. And one of the big things that I want to talk about today, which is why Maylin is with me, is your health. Because we often kind of take our health for granted. It ticks along, we're okay. And even worse for that as women is our hormone health. We don't actually look at our general hormone health until we have problems, until we kind of hit certain periods and times in our life where our hormones rear their heads, and we often get challenges. So that's why today my interview is with Maylin, who is a nutritional therapist who works to harmonise women's hormone health. That's a bit of a mouthful, but I think I got that right. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat about why it's important. But I think a really good question to start with you, Maylin, is actually what got you into looking at this in the first place?
Thank you, Jackie. It was my own kind of health journey, really, because when I was in my 20s, I went through a period of very ill health with kind of severe fatigue and getting ill all the time. And now with my training and being able to look back on it, I know that it was adrenal stress, so burnout, basically. But at the time, I was going back and forth to my GP and being told everything was normal and getting really frustrated and feeling awful. I remember I said to someone, I feel like I'm 27 trapped in the body of an 87-year-old. I felt exhausted. I couldn't walk home from the supermarket without having to take a rest. And I saw a nutritionist at the time and made really, really positive changes. But then my health improved, but then plateaued. And I really wanted to understand why I was making the changes, understand the biochemistry a bit more, and just get, the why, essentially get to the why. So I decided to retrain, and I retrained for 3 years at the Institute for Optimum Nutrition. And it was while I was training that I realized that my severe period pains and mood swings were in fact not normal, and I didn't need to accept them. And so I pushed for further investigation, and I was diagnosed with endometriosis and at the time depression and anxiety as well. So really it's to help women to avoid the pitfalls that I fell into with, accepting, being told that my results were normal and nothing was wrong, and just thinking, oh, I need to live with this, and showing women there's another way. So that's it's quite a long story, but that's how I got into it.
No, it's really interesting, and that's often kind of the case, isn't it? We kind of come up against something that's a real challenge, and we have to delve deeper, and then we get a passion for it. We just think, actually, I can do something about this. I can help myself, and I can help others, and that's often, what happens. So I think it's a brilliant thing. So is endometriosis, is that one of the, I have a few friends that have that. Is that quite common? Is that one of the things that comes up as a real challenge for women?
So endometriosis, it actually is quite common. It affects something like 1 in 10 women of reproductive age. And so that number, I think it's something like 176 million in the UK. That's technically more women than women that have type 2 diabetes. But obviously we know a lot more about type 2 diabetes. And there is a lot more research going into endometriosis now, which is great. It's being talked about a lot more in the media. So the understanding of it is increasing, which is really positive. But it can be an incredibly difficult condition to live with, because it's what happens is tissue that's similar to the lining of your womb will grow in other areas of the body, but it can contribute to scarring. You can have adhesions where your organs can stick together, basically, and so it can be incredibly painful. And then alongside that, you've got symptoms of fatigue and mood issues. There are increased levels of things like depression, anxiety, and other psychiatric conditions with endometriosis. And it's also one of those things that has such a big impact on your working life, because when you're in chronic pain, it's so difficult to get yourself to work. You can have a lot of digestive issues, a lot of symptoms that women might feel embarrassed to talk about with their employers as well. So I got a lot of issues around kind of vomiting and fainting. And I remember once I was at work sitting in the staff room, and my general manager was sitting across from me just asking me to tell her what was wrong, and I was kind of sweating profusely. My head was on the desk like this. I couldn't talk. I was in so much pain. And if somebody looks at you and they don't know you, their assumptions are going to be more around things like, oh, she might have a substance abuse problem or something like that, because you look outwardly like you're a healthy person, but you've got these severe symptoms.
Yeah, and I can understand why that would lead to a lot of sort of psychological and mental health issues, but also as well, I think, from kind of what I'm hearing from you and what I understand myself, it's very much a taboo subject. People don't actually talk about it. And like you say, people are doing a lot more research, but it's not common. It's quite shocking that there are more cases of that than there are of type 2 diabetes, which everybody feels that they know something about. And that's a huge number. That is quite incredible. So yeah, it's kind of, I suppose, about having those conversations and having people that you can trust, that you can have those conversations with about it. So what are some of the other common issues that you kind of deal with when you see your clients?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people come to me for things like fatigue, mood swings, it's not necessarily that they have something diagnosed. I mean, a lot of people do come to me who have endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, people who've got diagnosed thyroid conditions as well, but also a lot of people who appear well, as in all the test results are normal, they're told by their doctor nothing's wrong, but they don't feel like themselves. They know they can feel better because they remember a time where they felt differently, and yet there's all these kind of what we call subclinical, because it's not picked up on by your GP, but loads of symptoms that are really impacting your well-being. And I think a massive issue is when you're a woman, so often people just say, oh, it's your hormones, and that's like a blanket term, and then no further investigation is required. It's just your hormones. If a man goes to the doctor about migraines, that just watch how quickly that gets investigated. And yet if a woman goes, they'll say it's probably hormonal, and then here's some migraine medication. That you don't get the same level of investigation, and I think it's a lot more complicated than just saying it's your hormones. When you say that, people normally think probably estrogen, and estrogen gets blamed for loads of things, but ultimately there are other factors that feed into it. So I've mentioned, your thyroid health. That drives the speed at which all the other cells in your body work. And so if your thyroid function is sluggish, you're going to have lower production of hormones. You might have sluggish digestion. It feeds into everything. By the same token, your stress response has such a big impact, which is why when I went through my burnout phase, my symptoms were so wide reaching. It wasn't just clearly, oh, I'm stressed. I'm stressed, and now all the systems in my body are struggling. So the stress response is another thing that we need to consider in terms of the impact that then has on the wider reaching hormonal system, and digestion as well. You know, so many times we're told, oh, you just have IBS, or people come to me and they say, I think I have a food intolerance, but I don't really know. And you don't realize that if you have those symptoms and there's this ongoing inflammation in the digestive system, that has an impact on the rest of your body as well. So it's really about looking at yourself holistically. Everything's connected to each other.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. I've kind of found personally over the past, gut health is so important, and it has a lot to do with, kind of the health of your immune system as well, which, is you need to have there to kind of fight these things. So, so why is it then we don't get the help that we actually need? Why is it, that we don't get tested, and that often it is just blamed on hormones? Why is that, do you think?
I think the approach is we want to relieve symptoms. So when you go, when I went to the GP when I was younger with severe period pains, one of the options was the pill. And what that does is it will mask your symptoms. So then you're not having the severe pain your pain is less, and that's considered problem solved. But really, that's not exploring the underlying thing. And I think that's the approach with a lot of conditions, is we just need to mask the symptoms. When we think about thyroid health, for example, if someone has a low functioning thyroid, they'll be put on thyroxine or T4 replacement. And what that does is it just puts that hormone in your body. Your body then has to convert that into another hormone. The issue with that is that if your thyroid problem isn't that you're underproducing T4 or thyroxine, then being medicated with that isn't that helpful. So I think the issue is it's only looking at symptoms and not trying to explore root cause. That's ultimately why we're not getting the help that we need.
And the thing is, I suppose, why the body's a very efficient machine, and it's telling you something. You get the symptoms because it is actually telling you something, and you kind of need to investigate it and understand, rather than, like you say, just kind of mask it. Which is a challenge. I mean, it's no sorry, I'm distracted. There's like a motorbike outside that's making a real heavy rumble that's distracting. But there's the kind of, it's not the GP's fault. I mean, they're really stretched for time. It's not our fault that we want answers, and we want to get rid of the pain and the symptoms and the things. It is that kind of whole collective, that this is something serious that we could investigate, and actually get to a deeper understanding. So what are some of the things that you would recommend that people do?
So when I work with clients, there's kind of a three-pronged approach. So I look at food, and I look at downtime. So what are people doing to relax and reduce their stress response? And then also I call it their ecosystem. So everything that's surrounding them. So that could be to do with exposure to chemicals. And by that, I include things like cleaning products and stuff like that. Some people are really, really sensitive to chemicals. But also the influences around you, the people around you, are they positive? Are they causing you stress? Those kind of things. It's really kind of a holistic approach. So looking at those three areas. When I work with clients one-on-one, I do use a lot of testing to really get to the bottom of what's going on for them. So it's a lot of state-of-the-art stuff as well. So one of the issues, which we kind of touched on just now about testing with the NHS, is obviously there's possible funding issues and things like that, and they only have access to a certain amount of things. So through private labs, you can do really in-depth testing. It's absolutely fascinating. Just such a nerd over here. But that really gets answers as to what's going on for each individual, because sometimes people will come with similar sounding symptoms, and really the underlying cause is totally different, so you approach it from a different perspective. But the kind of things I look at is encouraging a more anti-inflammatory diet, so including lots of kind of crowding out with lots of really healthy, like vegetables, healthy fats, making sure people are eating balanced meals, reducing snacking to help balance blood sugar. And then in terms of downtime, it's very much, again, depends on the individual. So a lot of people will come to me and they're very ambitious, and they train really hard, as in exercise. And sometimes you look at their stress response or their stress results, and you just think, you just need to go for some lovely walks and do some gentle yoga and kind of back off some of the more extreme stuff. I always say it's a little bit like a Goldilocks scenario. So there's a little bit too much, a little bit too little. You want to get it just right for you.
Yeah. Everything in moderation, definitely. I love that. I might have to remember that kind of Goldilocks approach, getting it, because you're right, what works for one person won't necessarily work for another. It's getting it just right, for you, and working out what that is.
Exactly. And then also supplements. So supplements can be really, really great to kind of support people short term, especially if we find out that they're low in particular nutrients. And then often that can give people the oomph that they need and motivation to put some other changes in place that are more long term and sustainable. So yeah.
And it just occurred to me as well with the kind of eco, which isn't something I'd thought about before until you mentioned it, but there's kind of the people that we meet that are around us, our family and close friends, but then there's also the whole stuff that we get from social media. There's such a lot of kind of negativity that we can pick up from social media when we compare ourselves, unfavorably, unfortunately, to others that we kind of see on social media. So I've certainly found that that's something in lockdown, and over this year I've had to really monitor kind of what I'm looking at and who I'm looking at.
Well, I saw such an interesting post earlier, which was the only person you should be comparing yourself to is previous you.
So, yes, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Yes, that's absolute. I should have that printed out, because it's such a good reminder. It really is.
It's a thing with the health space as well, and the whole health journey is when we're looking for answers on social media, people will say, oh, this is the one thing you need to do for your hormones, this is the one exercise, this is the one supplement. There is no one thing. It's a combination of factors, and and they're very specific to you. So I'm so cautious with people getting health advice online. It's not a great
any advice.
Yeah, well, any advice.
Any advice online, get the ideas and then talk to an expert.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what is great is if you have done your research and you say, okay, this is what I've looked into, this is what I've tried, this is what's worked, this is what I need help with, because the more you know of what you feel you need, the more someone can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what would you, do you have anything that you can kind of help us with, so that women can kind of, like, if they're watching this, they want to do something, they want to kind of work with you today, is there anything that you could suggest that they could do?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, something I did a couple of weeks ago is I did a blood test on myself, because I use them with clients all the time. Normally I do a whole package with a series of testing. But for me, I thought I'm just going to do the blood test just to kind of see what my baseline is. Turns out I had loads of nutrients that were very low. So I kept telling myself I had kind of lockdown winter blues. No, well, probably, but also just very low iron, very low B12. So I've just kind of got my delivery of a bunch of supplements. So what I'm offering at the moment is a one-off 60-minute session with a really comprehensive blood test, and that is, I'm offering that for $349 at the moment. And if you wanted to get booked in and have a chat before Christmas, then I would encourage you to get in touch as soon as possible. But it is an offer that I'd love to run for the group kind of into January, because it is just a really good barometer of where you are. If you feel that you need more support, or you want to speak more about hormone testing or digestive symptoms, then do reach out. You know, feel free to email me or send me a message on Instagram, and we can have a chat about testing options as well, because I do a call with anyone who wants to, just to chat through options. But yeah, so the offer at the moment is the one-off. If you feel like you've got a generally good feel for your health and you just want to check in, it's a really good way of doing that.
It's a bit like a hormone MOT then, I suppose, really, which actually this time of year is probably really good as we go into kind of the overindulgence of Christmas. It's probably a good idea to do it now. So yeah, and that's very generous that you kind of will offer just to have a chat. So all of those details will be attached with the video, and your contact details and information about the offer. So that's really great. I mean, that's been really helpful, because you're right, it is often something that, you know, we feel that we can't ask, and it's something that we can't quite put our finger on. So yeah, it's good to know that actually there are people like you, Malin, who are looking at this and who are experts in this area that can help us. Because, you know, when it comes to kind of women and, you know, taking charge and control of your life, it is up to you to kind of do that. So so this is, you know, a really good step in the right direction to do that. So thank you so much for your time today. Obviously, if you've got any questions, any comments, please, you know, just get in touch with us, and we'll do our best to answer them. But it's been really great having you with me today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Jackie. I always love chatting to you.
Me too. Thank you.